Hey guys, welcome to the Colleen Gallagher Podcast. We are a top 400 spirituality podcast with the intention to be a space that you can come and tune in to receive a frequency that will activate, educate, and empower you to begin living a lifestyle you love that supports you financially. If you're returning, oh, hey. And if you're brand new, well, hello and welcome. Spirituality became a passion of mine because I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer at age 14. And after 9 long years of suffering, I self-healed my body, mind, and soul. So in these episodes, I bring you my own voice, as well as people I meet along my journey to offer perspective, inspiration, and real life proof that when you choose to follow your dreams, you say yes to what is inside of your heart, that you will begin to create a lifestyle that is wildly impactful, fulfilling, and abundant beyond your wildest dreams. We cover topics from health and wellness, digital marketing, new age spirituality, entrepreneurship, global development, and pop culture current events as it relates to the Great Awakening. So get ready, tune in, subscribe, and make sure to leave us a review to let us know what you're loving. You can always email us on my website, www.colleengallagher.co, to request episode topics and let us know how everything's going. I love you and thank you for being part of this collective community. I'm so excited for the day I get to meet you and give you a hug. And with that, y'all, we have episode 121, which I am so thrilled with Steve Rossiter and Joe Feminella, the founders of LA's newest dating app, First Rounds on Me. This was founded on the concept of bringing back real dating and driven by the persuasive need for in-person connection. The First Rounds on Me is an online dating app designed to get people off their phones and together in real life. With its unique features offering discounts at some of LA's hottest bars, coffee shops, and restaurants, First Rounds on Me also helps users find the perfect date spot and alleviate the stress and awkwardness when it comes to the bill. And they are launching in New York, which is so exciting. So welcome. We are so glad to have you both on.
Hey, what's up?
Thanks, Colleen.
It's been a long time, Colleen.
I know, you guys, we were just had an episode of their podcast last night. It will come out differently. So you guys have to make sure to go and subscribe to their podcast. What's the name? Will it be just First Rounds on Me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So make sure you guys will leave it in the show notes when it goes live, but you have to go subscribe and listen because that was an epic conversation. But I wanted to kind of start off because those who have listened, you guys wouldn't know this. I've talked about dating a lot. And actually episode 100 was open relating versus monogamy. And I use a different app. So they've heard me talk about that app. We're going to only highlight your app here. So I think it'd be good to start off for each of you, like before we get into just love and dating, is just a little bit more about each of you and your dating style and just kind of how you got here.
Yeah. So, the reason I made this app was because I was always kind of brought up in the more old school traditional way where you see someone from across the bar, you go approach them and you get those butterflies of this is either going to go amazing or I'm going to get rejected, and kind of being excited and okay with both situations. And I moved to New York City and I saw that no matter what you looked like, how smart you are, how dumb you are, everybody was on these dating apps and the world totally shifted. And I needed to find a way to bridge that gap between the old school and the new school. And that's where we came up with First Rounds on Me. And I feel like this is for those people who just want to go and be real and go on real dates and do what humans are supposed to do and connect in real life. And that's kind of how I see dating and how I did see dating. And I feel like that's where we should go as a society.
Yeah. And for me, I have not used an app in like 7 or 8 years. I think probably 7 or 8 years. And I kind of got tired of just the endless messaging back and forth. And when Joe told me about the idea, like maybe 2 years ago, it was the first time I was like, oh, I'm actually kind of excited about that. That's an app I would use. And I've kind of been helping them ever since and just trying to get it going. But yeah, my dating style, I don't go on a ton of dates, but this app is useful for me because it cuts out all the BS, up front and allows you to actually meet someone right away and then see if there's a connection.
Yeah. And I love it because I know a lot of my clients, I have like some of them that are older, like kind of 40s, 50s, like this whole digital dating thing is like new, right? Like this is like, oh my God, like we didn't ever think this would be a thing. And especially some of my clients who kind of don't live in bigger cities, you really have to now, especially after the pandemic, like rely on these online or dating apps. And so I will say for anyone listening, they are launching in New York, but they will be in the nation. But your guys' design of the app is so beautiful. Like when you go on, when you connect with someone, like it's not like you go and have a message. It's like it goes right to your calendar to like book a coffee or a cocktail or a wine. And it's really like very result and action orientated around love and connection, which I think we kind of miss in some of the other apps. So I just wanted to say that, but I definitely think you guys have done a good job at that, like what you're saying, and then the design of it. And so before we get a little bit more into kind of just how it works and just love and relating, I wanted to just dive into like, what does love mean to each of you? Because I feel like this is just a good place to start, especially for my men listeners, because it's so wildly different. And I'm happy to say mine too, of what does that really mean, especially to male founders of a digital dating app?
Yeah. So we spoke about this a little bit yesterday, but it's awesome because I feel like love is a lot of communication, a lot of growth through communication. And then I feel like when men are vulnerable, that's like the definition of a true man, because he understands where he needs to grow and how he can be more communicative. And I feel like those three things of being vulnerable, communication, and growth are my keys to real love with somebody who you think is really worth it, and like to let them in to your true soul.
Yeah, I think that's very well said. And I will add to that, that I think love, most times is based on an emotion, right? You feel like a really strong connection, attraction, et cetera, to somebody. But I think love is also a choice, right? It's a conscious choice that you're going to give someone your love. And a lot of times, like when you fall in love, like, yeah, maybe you don't make the most logical decisions, and they're not based on, it's based more on emotion. But I think real love, like lasting love, is going to be based on a conscious choice, conscious decision that you're going to love this person, give them your love, and act accordingly.
I agree with that. That's actually something I teach. And it's funny you guys say that, because I feel like I always say like the biggest thing to me, which has like hindered me from like the marriage or the traditional path, is like, I always hate feeling like that. It's like, you have to do something, like you're forced. It's like, I'm forced to be in this relationship because there's a wedding band or because there's a legality in it. Which I think what you say, one thing when I'm in serious relationships, I always like it when we like wake up in the morning or before we go into bed at night. It's always like what we're grateful for that day of each other. And always saying like, I choose this, I choose you, like every day, kind of restating it to like remind it in ourselves that it's not like I have to be here. It's a choice for both people. And I think that's a really powerful thing. So I love that you shared that. And so moving into that, how do you think First Rounds on Me, the dating app, really amplifies or energizes what love means to both of you?
Yeah, so I think one of the key aspects of the app is that when people connect, they kind of have this in limbo phase where they don't know what to do, and it causes a lot of friction. And I think when you actually set up that date and get to be in person, that's when the true connection can happen. And I think that's when true emotion comes out, true love can potentially come out. And I think being present with somebody is just the start of whatever beautiful journey two human beings can be on together. And I think that's kind of how our app is geared to help people. And I think people just need to be comfortable enough and confident enough to give that a chance, kind of like we said, the old school way.
Yeah. And Joe, you say this a lot. I think that with other dating apps, and not shit talking them at all, but other dating apps, you message with somebody and you start to create like this ideal person that you won't really actually know the real person until you meet them. So that's why we put so much emphasis on, cutting out all that small talk and getting to know somebody face to face in person, because we think that's how valuable we think it is. And we think everything is based off that.
Yeah. And I'd say a lot of you guys who are listeners, I can't speak as a woman as much, but I know men, you guys have complained about this a lot, where they feel like they'll send a message and there's nothing, or there's messaging and it's like ghosting. And it's like, oh my God, like, I feel like I'm always on this, like, what's it called? Like fisherman new hook. Like it's always a thing. And what I think is so beautiful about your guys' app, you didn't say it yet, but that once you connect, you make a moment for the date to happen on your calendar. Like you decide when it's going to be, and then you can actually talk to that person until it's 6 hours before the date. So it's like, you're literally going just based off energy, like intuitively what you feel from that person's energy or what the information they gave. And then you're kind of in this, like, I don't know, like lustful, wondering state of like what it is, but you're right. It's not like you're texting and it's doing there. Like you're just getting to dream it up yourself, I feel like, which is more powerful than, talking and then dreaming and then like being disappointed.
Yeah. And I think that 6 hour phase, or the build up to the 6 hours before the date, is kind of the build up from eye contact in a bar to the walkover approach, right? That walkover is the build up. You're thinking, what's going to happen here? Like, this can go so many different ways, and I'm really excited to see what happens. That build up to the 6 hours, the whole week, you're like, oh my God, I have 2 days and 5 hours to talk to this person. I am so excited to see what happens. And I think getting that build up as close to in person as possible is the perfect solution. And I'm being biased because it's our app.
No, but I think there's so much to it. And I also think there's a biology, like we didn't talk about this, but there's also like a sexual tension to that too, because like the build up to, I mean, like I've learned talking about this, but a build up to like an orgasm is also almost like sometimes the best part of it. So it's almost like in an interconnected way, but humans like that mystery. And so I think the design, that's why I said the app is really brilliant on your guys' part. And I think the fact that it's two men doing it too is also a really beautiful testament of like the bad parts that men have done in the digital world, you know, like the more superficial, just based on looks. Like, I feel like you guys are really taking this like psychological, holistic love approach, which is like a really cool avenue. I can see that's going to work for you guys when doing interviews or, you know, talking with other people.
Yeah. And I think there's definitely studies out there that say that a lot of people, like the best part of a vacation is the anticipation leading up to it. And exactly what you're saying, I think a date can work the same way. Like if you book a date a week out, but you know you can't talk to that person until 6 hours before it starts, you're going to kind of get excited about it and you're going to really look forward to it. And I think that helps build that, you know, first connection. And then another thing too is one of the words that we use a lot is intentional, right? And we feel like our app forces you to be intentional, right? Because like you said, the only way you can actually talk to somebody is if you invite them on a date and they accept the date. So instead of like just continuously swiping right and hoping you get a match and not really actually looking into the person, you know, you have to really decide like, hey, would I really want to go out with this person if they were to say yes? And that's something that really sets our app apart.
Yeah. And the other thing that you said that I like what you said is that you can only have one date a day. So you can't like book like 5 dates in a day, and you can only book it out 7 days. And then you can only have 7 dates, like one a day, basically. Like you can't do that. So I'd like, it's just very like, you have to be specific and really looking and genuine about it. It's not like, okay, I don't have time for a relationship, so I'm just kind of whatever. Like it really is like those, you know, who are genuinely in the pursuit to find love. So I love that. And that was kind of my next question. We kind of went through it, but I guess we can kind of dive deeper into it psychologically. But so what is the real goal from, you know, First Rounds on Me with love and dating? You said kind of intentionality, which is what we just kind of went through. That was the question. You guys are psychic. So, and the next part I was going to say is, why do you feel like intentionality is so important? I feel like we all just went through, you know, this, I don't like even saying the word, but we all went through this whole thing of being, you know, locked away for 2 years, and we all, you know, went through kind of a frenzy. And dating has always been this kind of, I don't know, mysterious thing. It's not like there's one code that's cracked at all. So what do you feel like, or why intentionality is so important, or why this, like you sat there like this has to happen?
Yeah, I mean, I'll let Steve touch on the intentionality because that's his go-to, and I think he's perfect at it. But when it comes to what our goals are, obviously with an app, you know, you want a lot of users and you want it to be successful, but our real goal is to build a real community, right? The dating app community right now is just a shit show, right? Everybody hates them. There's so many dating apps and a lot of nonsense goes on in them. And we're trying to just build a real community of people who are comfortable with themselves. They have the intention of going out, meeting in person, and they just want to have fun and connect and network, whatever that means. We're not asking people to fall in love. We're not putting pressure on them to fall in love. It's just, you go out in society, out of your house, anything could happen. And that's how the world changes. The world does not change from everyone sitting behind their computer or behind their phone. So what we're trying to do is get the world back out into the world and back out into society and make dating fun again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well said. And I think we always talk about, like, from a strategic standpoint, in terms of growing the app, our best marketing efforts come from when we do what we call like pop-up events, where we will go to a bar or a coffee shop, and we will buy the first round of anybody that comes and downloads the app and makes a profile. And for us, you know, it's so valuable because, like Joe said, like, everyone's kind of sick of dating apps, but if they're into dating apps at all, once they hear how ours works, you kind of see like a little sparkle in their eye and like, oh, that actually sounds really cool. Like, I'm going to give that a try, because it's so different than the other ones. Right. And then also like what we're trying to do, especially early on in terms of like building a community, is make sure that, you know, we're out there, like Joe said, like meeting people, and they're able to meet the founder and meet people who are, you know, creating this app. And it really helps people, you know, make a connection to us and to the app, as opposed to, you know, some other apps that might be a little more like faceless. But the problem is you can't scale it, of course, right? You can only be in so many places at once and talk to so many people at a time. But we found, like, especially in terms of growing the app and then building that community, like being out there, just meeting people. And that's kind of who we are at our core. Like, we love to be out there, just like doing things and mixing it up and meeting people. So it all works together to build this community. And then, you know, as a byproduct, grow the app.
Yeah. And we're going to kind of get into the entrepreneur side later, so I don't want to go too much into it, but I think what's really cool about what you guys are doing, because word of mouth marketing is still always most powerful, is that you're in the very beginning out there so that people will use word of mouth, you know, to get it growing, and probably be like, I met the founders actually, so you should download it. And that's like the most powerful thing. So yeah, I think you guys are totally doing it right. And I think it's a really, I think the design of it is beautiful. There's, like you said, nothing really I've seen like it. It's really like, you can't just be on there to bullshit. It's like, you know, that it's already a qualified person really looking for that connection, which I guess we've just kind of lost in society. I think a lot of us are really confused, maybe, of like, we're not thinking, why am I meeting up with someone? Or is this like a compatible person? Or it's become very jaded, whether through the integration of in person, like you said, to technology, or, you know, all of us being locked away for 2 years. But I think it's just really done beautifully. And so the next part that I wanted to go into, because you guys are probably experts in this and definitely would help some of my, you know, the audience listening, is what are some dating etiquette tips you can give with either, you know, in app. So let's say it's the 6 hours before and you're starting messaging, like what are some tips or etiquettes that, you know, you could offer? And then what are some etiquettes you can offer when you're first meeting up? Because I know men and women, like, it's always like kind of nerve-wracking, nervous. I just, you know, especially older, you know, 40 and older, are not used to this digital world. Like, what are some of those tips of what goes really well?
I would say from the profile standpoint, you have to find a balance of over delivering and under delivering, right? Like, you don't want to devalue yourself through the profile.
Mm-hmm.
I think so many people, men and women, oversell themselves, whether it's through pictures or through what they do. And then once you meet them, you're just like, oh, I thought that you were this, you know, crazy rich guy or this handsome tall man, and you're 4 inches shorter than who you really are. So I think kind of being true to yourself on a profile standpoint.
Yeah.
And then when you meet someone, kind of just being yourself. I know that sounds very simple and it's a generic answer, but I think it's really important. Like, you hear a lot of people have these pickup lines, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, yeah, pickup lines might be great once in a while, but if you just go up to somebody and say, hey, I'm so-and-so, like, I'd like to get to know you. What's your name? I think that starting point is so amazing. And if you do that on a date, just, hey, like, this is so amazing. I'm Jess from the app. This is amazing. Nice to meet you. And then it just builds sincerity and a genuine connection. And a big thing for me when it comes to that on a date is we talk about when the bill comes, right? Mm-hmm. So as a guy, I'm always going to pay for the bill. Just if I like you, if I don't like you, that's just who I am to the core. Mm-hmm. But if a woman doesn't initiate, like even put her hand in her pocket to be like, oh, I'll split it, it's a big turnoff for me, because she's just assuming, oh, I'm on this date, he's taking care of it. And that's a turnoff for me.
Same here. Yeah, I feel the same way. Yeah, I would say, like, even though if you use our app or if you use another app, right? Like, the 6 hour window is a tool. And I would fight the urge to, like, really try to get to know somebody over the app, right? Because it takes away, like we said, it takes away that initial, like, conversation. But you don't also, like, I found in the past, if I've done that, like, I'm on the date and I'm trying to, like, recall facts, right? Because I'm like, oh shit, did she say this? And if you're talking to multiple people at once, you're going to start confusing things. So like, I would just say, like, you know, set that date, right? And we like to say, like, the 6 hour window is more for, like, you know, logistics, or maybe a little bit of, like, a feel each other out. Hey, I'm excited about tonight. Looking forward to meeting you. But, like, I would say, like, really don't try to have a conversation. And the same thing with text too. Like, people want to text so much that it's like, when you actually get in front of the person, it's, you know, sometimes it's like, where do you start? What do you have left to talk about? Right. And
Yeah.
you should have a lot to talk about, but like at the same time, like a lot of people, if you get through all the BS facts, then it's like, you're kind of in a hole. But I would say like on the first date, right? Like be yourself. All that stuff is great. It's easier said than done. But I would just say, don't put too much pressure on yourself for a first date. Like, don't think, oh, I'm going to marry this person, or I hope it works out. First date should be like, a vibe check, feel the energy, see if there's a connection, and don't have like, I wouldn't even have like interview questions in mind. Like just talk, like just have a conversation, right? And
Totally.
if you're not good at it, you get better at it by doing it more, obviously. So like,
very true.
just talk to people out. Like, you eventually have to get to the core of why you're not a great communicator, but like start talking to everybody when you're out. And it's much easier to do that on a date, right? If you kind of treat everybody the same, it takes all the pressure away from like a first date.
Totally. And I've kind of said this in a different way, but I feel like the most attractive thing, I mean, your guys' app is different, but the most attractive thing to me has been when someone's reached out on an app, like it's gonna say like, hi, you're beautiful, whatever. But like what I really like is like, you can tell a guy went and looked, I mean, I'm an entrepreneur, but went and looked at my website or went and looked at my books or listened to my podcast and like, wow, da, da, da. And they're like, I really like this about you. And this is how it relates to me, or here's how I relate to you. Like, and they find that connection right away. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so cool. And to me, that's always been like what allows you to connect with someone. And even when you're on a date for the first time, of like, you want to listen to them, but then proactively see like how and what they're saying, can I connect with them, or do I connect in with them? Like if there's energy, and that's how you kind of check the vibe, like where is that similarity? And you want to listen open-endedly as much as you kind of like where that similarity is, to like bridge those gaps quickly, because that's what brings you closer. So I like you guys said that.
Yeah, I think that's an attention to detail thing, which shows a deeper connection and a deeper intention, right? And I think the most attractive thing human beings do is make eye contact. And when you make direct eye contact with somebody, that means that you're truly invested in what they're saying. And when you do that to what you're saying, of finding something that is an interest of the other person, it really piques their interest, and it shows, oh, you're putting in this effort, you're actually interested in what's going on here. And I think those two things work hand in hand.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think I don't feel like we've really been taught how to listen well. And I definitely don't think we've been taught to do it in connections. Like, and I feel like I don't know, like, I feel like I guess I feel like for me, I've seen this evolution of like women feeling they have to fight for, a seat at the table, or like women equality or equal pay, or like even, I mean, I've always thought this was crazy, but like the fact that women, after they would have birth, they would get 3 months off, but the husband doesn't. Like, that's so crazy to me. Like most countries, it's both, because both people created the baby get maternity leave, and like, it was this thing of, I feel like there was always a fight to be heard, whether it was like a fight for the more masculine person to produce and provide, and this one to like feel and do the household, or whatever that is. Obviously biologically only one person carried the baby, but like, I just felt like there was always this constant fight. And so this listening, I feel like, is something that's much, I don't know, it's a much newer talked about thing. So it was more when you didn't have the digital world, you were only going to really meet or marry who was in your surroundings, like, or ironically, if you went somewhere and like, blessed by God, met a miracle, like, and so I think this whole thing of listening is a really important thing. I've never really specifically talked about, but you're right. It creates this polarity dynamic. Otherwise, it's just always fighting for the attention of, like you said, who's one-upping the other to feel like they're worthy or something like this.
So I don't have many quotes in my tool bag, but there's one that I stick to. And I believe it was Socrates, right? And he said that knowledge is dialogue, right? And the only way to really get smarter is to listen to people, to understand things that you don't know. And when they say that communication is like 90% nonverbal, I think people really need to take that into account. You need to listen. Those people who just speak and speak and speak, they are getting nowhere in life. And you need to take a second and let other people speak so that you could take more in. And that's how you learn. That's how you connect. And that's how you grow. And it's important. That's just what's needed.
Yeah. And I think going back to like a piece of practical advice, this shouldn't even have to be said, but if you're if you're on a date, put your phone on silent, put it in your pocket, and do not take it out, right? Like, I see, a lot of people, like, I mean, how many times nowadays, not even on a date, but just, are you trying to talk to somebody and they're just looking at their phone, right? And I'm guilty of this sometimes too. Like, I mean, we're together all the time talking business, trying to work and talk at the same time. But like, when you're trying to have a real conversation with somebody, put your phone away, don't look at it, fight the urge to even check it. Like, some people are very addicted to the phones, myself included, but I know when I can put it out of my reach. So I would say that's a very practical tip. It'll help you listen better and help you be more present.
Yeah. And I liked the one piece of advice. I like that you said that. The other piece of advice I'd like you to share that was more towards women is that when you're on the first date and the woman at least like saying, hey, I'll split it with you or whatever, that's something I've definitely really practiced and it's worked really well for me. I don't think I've ever successfully split a bill on the first date, but I have tried, but multiple times. And I've like gotten creative even in ways I was like, oh, this guy is really cool. Or like, I felt like I knew I had a little bit of a different financial situation. So I was like, oh my God, I cannot let this person pay. And I've never been successful. I've like tried different tricks and things, but
Good.
I think the other thing I wanted to ask is what are some other tips just for women? I feel like I haven't really had that, on the podcast where like, what are some things that, women should be, and obviously those of you listening, this is for straight couples. If you're, gay or bisexual, I'm super sorry. That's not this episode, but you were being inclusive, you can turn it masculine, feminine, but,
although the app is open to everybody.
Yeah, the app's open. I'm just in this
Yeah.
conversation,
Sure.
but and you can take what we're saying and apply it, like I said, masculine, feminine. But anyway, I think what are some tips for women of like what is really attractive and what's kind of like, oh shit, too much?
I haven't thought a ton about that. Let me think about it. You got everything off the top?
Yeah, I mean, for
You could
me,
do it from your past, obviously.
I'm trying to go back into the.
for me, as I get older, it's substance, right? Like, especially living in Los Angeles and being from New York, a lot of people are good looking. It is what it is. And, obviously you want to be attracted to somebody, but when I'm really attracted to somebody, it's when they have substance, and substance can be very broad, but as long as you're passionate about something and you're teaching me something and there's an interesting dialogue of conversation, that is so important for me. If we're just sitting there and you're talking about your Instagram likes and, all that crap, I'm just like, okay, I can never see me sitting down in front of you again if we're going to talk about Instagram and your makeup line in the mirror. Like, I don't care about that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say one thing that jumps out to me would be, and this is for both men and women, but like, be direct about plans and like, basically cut to the point of our app, but like, try not to be like, what do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? And have that go back and forth. Just be more direct. Like, even if it's on the guy to, take control or not, but if someone asks you to do something, say yes or no, or offer up a new suggestion. Like, don't be wishy-washy with like your intentions or even plans. I think is at least a good place to start when it comes to dating. And I think we did a great job covering how the app works. But one thing I was thinking about that we touched on is a lot of people struggle with like, what do I do on a first date? Right. Mm-hmm. Which we kind of talked about this, but with our app, right, you choose a drink, a location, and a time. So the app builds that first date for you. So it takes away pretty much all the stress of like figuring out what to do on a first date. And like you said, we have a coffee option, we have a juice option. It doesn't have to be alcohol, but with that, it gives you that first date. And we kind of both think that a great first date should probably just be drinks, right? Because, drinks or a walk or something, but like dinner is probably too much because you could get stuck with somebody that you don't want to be with. And
expensive.
Yeah, expensive. Drinks are perfect because it's like, you can leave after one if you want to, you can leave before one finishes if it sucks, right? You can do whatever you want, but it doesn't really lock you into anything. Totally. So that's one thing I think like helps people just figure out that first date and get that problem out of the way.
Totally. And that's what I like about your app too, because if it's like, let's say if you just met someone, even me, like if I just met someone, even like if I go out or something like this, I'm never gonna like just meet someone and go out with them. I'm always gonna be like, let's have a phone conversation to see if it's a vibe. Like that's always like, let's see whatever to see if it's a fit or something like this, or, do something small like that. And then if it was, that's when I would be like, okay, dinner. But I like really vet people. Like I'm very like calculated. It would never just be like, just because. So I do like that you guys do that. Cause I do say to people, never, especially men, you guys never take a woman that you just met like on a trip or like on a, on like this nice fancy dinner unless you've already like vetted and you know there's pure intention and you know there's like a real opportunity. Otherwise you're kind of just wasting time. So I like that you shared that because I think it's good. And I also like that you shared that women listening. Yeah, don't be afraid to say like, this is the kind of coffee I like, or this is I don't like drinking, you know, like don't be afraid to say whatever that it is, like just be direct in it. And that's better than doing something you don't want to do to impress someone or all those other things. So I like that you said that.
Yeah. And that goes back to exactly what Joe said about being yourself, right? Easier said than done, but it's going to come out eventually, whether it's the second date or 10 years into marriage. You're like, fuck, I wasted 10 years of my life because I was hiding my true self. So the sooner you can get to that, and I'm sure like, you know, everyone you work with, that's one of your main things is getting them to be true to themselves and live a life true to themselves. So if you can carry that over into, you know, hopefully that could be your default and that's your setting as you're always yourself, right? Obviously within reason, but like, the sooner you can do that, the better your dating life is going to be for sure.
Yeah, no, I think sometimes too, and we have a whole episode on this. I don't know if it might've been my episode 100, open relating versus monogamy. I think it was, but what I said is just being with people that you're not so afraid to be yourself. And even if you're someone who leans more towards strictly monogamy, but you don't want to sit here and just wait until the right person comes, you shouldn't punish yourself to not go out and date or go out and experience people, because there might be parts of you that are activated, are found within you through these different people while you're waiting for your like correct person. And so I was saying exactly what you said, like, just don't be afraid to be open to getting to know new parts of yourself. And to me, that's why relationships are so important, whether it's, you know, dating or interpersonal or careers, because relationships are our biggest mirrors in life and what I share. And so every relationship is going to mirror something different to you. And that's why the ending of relationships are so hard, because we're grieving a part of us that no longer will move forward with us in the future. Like there was something that you two people brought out in each other, some things that will stay with you, some things that will stay with them, and then a part that will no longer be alive into your future because you're like moving energy. So I love that you said that. I think it's really important. Okay. So the other part that I wanted to ask about this kind of before we get into the entrepreneur side is, what do you feel like have been the biggest successes with the app so far? And what have been some of the challenges?
Oof, that's a great question. I mean, I would say there's a lot more challenges than successes with any startup.
Mm-hmm.
But successes is that we have such a small team and we're doing so much, and we've already amassed 3,000 users in 3 months, less than 3 months, which is really good. And we're building the right people, right? Like we're getting the right users, we're building that community, and we're now going to be in 2 cities and then 3 cities in 2 more months. So those are great successes. And I would say the challenges, there's a new challenge every day. Like Steve could tell you 1 second, I'm so happy. And he's like, oh, what's wrong? And I'm like, oh, there's a coding issue, or we wasted money on an influencer, or this marketing strategy is not working. And the challenges are endless, but the key to those challenges is just having the right people around you to get the problem sorted as fast as possible, and then learning from that problem so that it's not as big next time around. And that's the growth overall of the app. And yeah, that's what we've seen in these first 3 months. And I'm sure we'll see that forever, but there's a lot of challenges and a lot of successes as well.
Yeah. And one thing that I think a lot about with this is the idea of being proactive versus reactive, right? So like on any given day, I probably have, 5 to 7 things that I need to be proactive with, right? Like I do a lot of the social media, the content, the marketing stuff. And I have this list. It's like, we have podcasts, we have a couple key pieces of content that we're either planning, shooting, or editing, right? And those are my proactive things. But then 20 reactive things will come in where it's like, we have this event, we need an invitation made, or we need to do this. So it's like the battle between doing like the stuff that we're trying to do to grow versus the stuff that we need to do that's like, necessary to like do the next event or do the next thing, or, emails. So it's like, it's just a battle right there between those 2 things. Yeah.
And I definitely think even though, I'm not like a super old business, but almost 5 years in January, I think it will be.
Wow. So you
I know
you made it past 85% of small businesses if you've made it past 5 years. So congrats to you.
Yeah. So what I was going to say though, is that I always feel, even in, 4.5 years or 4 3/4 that I've been in business so far, like you will always have more failures than successes. And even Mark Zuckerberg says this, and even like Amazon, it's just that your successes outweigh your failures. Like there'll be more products that are like lost, or you're like, shit, like that messed up, or, they're like, I missed a comma in this book or this writing post, or whatever that it is, our autocorrect spelling did something and I posted it or I didn't see it, whatever that it is. Like there's always more failures, but your successes are just always bigger. And so I think that's like a really important thing that you guys shared, because it doesn't there. And then the other thing of what you shared of like maintaining versus growth, really, that was kind of the key you were putting that, is like, that's always a challenge, I think, for anyone listening, but I think that's even in relationships, right? Maintaining where we're at while growing. Like, if we were just, maintaining would be like, hey, is the laundry done? Do we have food in the fridge? Something like this, like that's maintaining versus like, okay, are we actively going on dates we both enjoy? Are we actively surprising each other still? Are we actively, whatever, like it's always, because sometimes we just get in the rut of like, I'm so busy and I'm going and I'm not thinking about this business or this person or all these other things going on. And so it's always like that. And I think the other thing that you said that I really liked, was that it wasn't coding. It'll come to me. There was one other thing, but I think those two are like the really big, important ones for you guys listening, of like, it's never going to be perfect and you're never going to have everything when you start.
Yeah. And it's all those cliches that you see, you hear and you see and you read. It's, Joe and I balance each other really well, because historically I've been like an overthinker and trying to make things, too perfect and essentially just procrastinating. Right. And Joe's like, go, go, go. So usually we'll meet in the middle, and he brings out like the best in me to push me to do stuff and put stuff out faster. So I would say, especially while we're new and young, it's like, the cliches of like fail fast and, learn as long as they're not major failures that are going to destroy the company, right? Like test stuff. Like we've changed our plan a lot in only 2 months, right? Just from like, we had a really big focus on influencers. Then we kind of found like which ones actually work, right? Which ends up being like more of the micro influencers that have the audience that we're looking for, right? And then, so it's just about like, adjusting course as you go, but like doing things fast and making a few mistakes. Yeah, don't even consider them mistakes or failures. Just it's all learning and it's all.
Yeah, those who could pivot are going to succeed the fastest, because if you're stubborn in your ways and don't want to change, you're going to fail, because you obviously need to change because something's not working. But if you understand and can pivot every second and every day, you're just going to eventually pivot the right ways and get it all figured out. Not all figured out, but get it more figured out.
No, I agree. Like I started my business back in 2018, and then I figured out, digital marketing, really quickly. I had my first book and my first 6-week program. I made my first $10,000 in like 4 months. And I was like, oh my fucking God, who makes $10,000 in a month? I'm like 24 years old, I'm like, what? Like, this is crazy. Like, I didn't know this was a thing. And, I wanted to see how I could scale it, because I was like, this is so easy. I'm going to get bored. I can't keep doing this for 10 more years. Like I need to figure out, how do we help more people with this? And so that's when I went back on my master's in global technology and development, because I knew I didn't know what I wanted my PhD yet in. So I was like, that'll like give me a year to like kind of figure it out. And I really was torn between, a quantitative or qualitative career kind of in research and writing. What was I going to choose? It was always this thing of like, was I wanted numbers in this, or like this qualitative like side? Obviously, if you know me, I'm like this qualitative, like I want to know, how do we measure the emotions and how do we do that? Like that was me, but I felt like I couldn't get the success I wanted if I didn't do that. And so I had to go through this process of like, I was rejected from 2 quantitative schools, but I was like approved to the qualitative, but I was like, of course it happened, because that's where I meant to go. And I saw it. And so like, it just made me so happy. And so I think whether it's app or, academia or even my business, it's what you said, like always pivoting. And even dating, you said it here, you can only learn through action. You are not going to learn to have a better date or to be a better communicator sitting behind your laptop or behind your phone. Like you have to know there is going to be little awkward moments or little, things. And I think what surprised me the most about dating probably in my life is I think because of the apps, we're kind of like used to this constant high, this constant like, oh my gosh, new person, new thing, new whatever.
Constant
and
validation.
what?
It's constant validation.
Yeah. And I was definitely, and what I found this year through the relationship that I'm in, and what I just love so much is that I've found like the beauty in just being with someone and being peace, like just being at peace. Like there's no high to chase. There's no like overstimulation needed. There's just like a pure calmness. And that has been like such a beautiful lesson in growth. I can't say like business, but it is like, that was a success for me in it. So yeah, I think you guys are on the right path, and what you're sharing is just amazing.
Thank you.
So the next part kind of was going into, let me make sure, hold on before. Okay. So 12 months from now, where do you hope to see the first round of me is on with online dating, creating love stories, and becoming a leader in the digital dating world?
Yeah. So in the next 12 months, a big goal of ours is to be in as many cities as possible, right? Right now we're in LA, we're going to be in New York in October and Miami in January. We're already talking about doing Nashville. So in the next 12 months, we would like to be in every major city in America and kind of be talking about going global. So yeah, that's our plan. And when it comes to our success overall from a number standpoint, we have to be realistic. We're not going to be in the Tinder, Bumble, Hinge area, probably, if not ever, but probably in the next couple of years. So we would like to be in that second tier, right? Of one of those up and coming dating apps that's doing so well and having all those new people gravitate towards those new apps because the top three are, already played out and everyone's sick of them. So that's kind of our 12-month goal, I would say.
Yeah. And I guess that's also, strictly from an app perspective, right? Like Joe said earlier, we're trying to build a community, right? And we're trying to have like a media division, right? Where we do different things, podcasts, different types of videos that kind of promote the same message and build the community, but in different avenues. We're working on some merch right now. And like, I only bring that up because one of the goals with the merch is not just to slap the logo on like a shitty t-shirt, right? It's to build something that, yes, it supports the app, but I always say like it could stand alone, right? If people didn't even know about the app because the clothes are like cool and comfy and people love the feel and the fit. So like we're trying to do all these different things. And again, the app is always the main focus. So everything we do right now is in support of the app, but we would like to build, we like to say like maybe like a mini empire type of thing where there's a bunch of different stuff going on, but it all kind of revolves around the same message and same community and involves like helping people and bringing people together. So I would say, I don't know that we have tangible goals for that stuff yet because we are so focused on app and the numbers and stuff, but building out those things over the next 12 months is a huge part of it.
Yeah. And the kind of other part, I guess I want to go into that is also like the restaurants you guys choose or the juices or the coffee bars that you guys choose for the app. So tell me a little bit about that process. Like how do you choose these certain ones, and like, is there a thing behind it, like a reason behind it? And like, if there are people listening, so I do know I have some restaurant owners or different, people around the country, if they wanted to collaborate, like how are you looking for that? What does that look like and your mindset behind that?
Yeah, so it kind of just goes with the coolest places with the most traffic for our demographic. And we'll reach out to them and just kind of start with a pop-up and show them the value and say, we're sending this many dates into your venue. We should come up with some type of partnership where we're getting compensated because you're getting so much revenue from, our foot traffic. And yeah, we're doing most of that work on the front end from Steve and I just going to these places right now. However, we have started to see venues start to reach out to us to say, how do we partner with you and how do you do a pop-up with us? And I think that's only going to grow with word of mouth and success.
Yeah.
But that's kind of where we're at now. And then eventually we're going to have those, like you mentioned, discounted long-term partnerships where our dates will get, certain benefits of going to these venues because they're a paying customer or they're a valued customer on our side. But yeah, it's a lot of work right now, but we think it will get a lot easier.
Yeah. And I think that what Joe said right there kind of fits into our whole message, right? And like I said, we're people that like to go out and do stuff, right? So I think it's a good crossover between dating and growth in life in general is literally, we always say just getting out of your apartment, getting out of your house and going and doing stuff. And we always find like, from a dating perspective, yeah, you're obviously way more likely to meet people when you're out doing stuff, whether it's at a bar, at the grocery store, doing anything, right? But from a business perspective too, we keep finding that like when we're out doing stuff, that next door opens, right? The next person we meet first, like it's something we enjoy doing, but also the opportunities come from that. Like Colleen, with you, like we both decided to go, like we were sponsoring and went to Cassidy's singles event. That's where we met you, and we just started chatting in line, and here we are on 2 podcasts in 18 hours, right? So
I know.
Doing it.
I know. I should tell you all the story. I did it. I think I talked about it on another episode. I'm not quite sure. I think I did, or maybe in a post. But anyway, you guys, this was the night was it a month? No, it wasn't a month ago now, a couple weeks ago. It's when you guys saw, I went to one of my friends' Kyle Designs, jewelry, and it was his 1-year anniversary of his business. So we go, and my friend Lauren and I are there. I don't know if you guys have seen Lauren yet on Instagram. You guys have seen stories of us, I think. So anyway, so we are out and we're just having our best life. And obviously we had champagne and, living, whatever. And so anyway, we're sitting at this Kyle's, and this woman was like, do you want to go to a singles party? And I was like, sure, I'll ask my friend Lauren. And I look over, I was like, wait, I want to make sure you said singles, not swingers. She's like, yeah. So anyway, we go to the bar. I don't even remember what bar it was now. We were going to go outside, and the woman who invited us, Taylor, she said, with all the tickets are sold out or something like this, but I can have you be my plus one, and then your friend can be my friend's plus one. So Lauren and I are sitting at this bar, just chit-chatting, talking, whatever. And this guy comes up to me and was like, where are you going tonight? And we were like, to the singles party. And he's like, I'm DJing at Nightingale. Do you want to come? And I'm like, well, I got to go to the singles party first. So anyway, we are leaving and we're going. And then you guys are standing outside of this thing and we start talking. So I'm like, oh, my friend Taylor. So then we start talking about you guys, open relationship, monogamy, just all things love and dating. And I was like, oh my God. So they had a podcast. Obviously you guys know I have a podcast. And so I was like, we have to do this. So Lauren and I just finished the night. So we had this great conversation. Lauren and I go in, and they had the best thing at the party was this Jenga. They had Jenga, but every Jenga you pulled had a different question. So I pulled, of course, you guys are going to laugh. My 2 that I pulled were, what was your biggest turn on and your biggest red flag? And I was like, I'm the biggest red flag. And I was joking, but we had all these cool people that we met that, whatever. So we go over to Nightingale for the DJ. And then as soon as we're walking in, this guy who's the bouncer was like, hey, where are you going? I'm like, into the club. And he's like, who are you with? I'm like, my girlfriend's. He's like, I've got a table for you. So now we're at this club and I have 2 tables that I've been invited to. One's the DJ, one's this other. And so with the girls, we were going between the 2, and it was just a wild, fun time. But anyway, that was the dancing video you guys would have seen on Instagram and Facebook. That was the night. So
yeah, but that's you guys saying yes, living your life and just doing the fun stuff. That seems cool. And you met, how many people did you meet that night? Right? It's crazy.
So many cool people that night. Yeah.
That's why I deleted the apps in the first place. Like 6 or 7 years ago, I was sitting home and I was on the app on a Friday night and I was like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? I just deleted them cold turkey and I just went out, and that's it. Now I'm back on this one, obviously. But,
yeah. No, I think it's what I love about First Run. I mean, what I love is that you guys are new. I feel like you guys have really, back to intentionality, you've really intentionally thought about the design. I like that. Like I said, a lot. I think that I don't know a lot of men, who are kind of in the industry. I think Bumble was a woman, right? I think that Tinder was a man, but it's manly feeling, not in a bad way. It just, but this is a very holistic way of love, which I love. And it's just,
we're sensitive guys.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to just witness it. I'm excited to see it grow. And just for all of you who are in LA or, even if you're not, still go down and download the app, First Rounds on Me. And they'll be in a city soon, or you never know, maybe you'll be the first download in your city and someone else will, and you'll match and you'll, meet. And so I think you guys shared a lot of really good things. There's a lot of etiquette, I think, that will help some of the, followers when doing it. And also, like you said, of not getting so lost in the text message back and forth, but even if it's not on the app and you meet someone out, just make the effort to okay, we're going to meet and that's it. There's no extensive talking or texting, just do it. And so with that, is there anything else you guys want to share or you want to add or offer before we wrap up?
No, yeah, obviously, you could find us at First Rounds on Me on Instagram. On the App Store, it's First Rounds on Me or From Me, FROME. And yeah, we just appreciate you. We're building that community and we're trying to grow as fast as possible. So every download and every word of mouth spread helps. But yeah, we really just appreciate it.
Yeah, and we have our podcast launching that, like we said, Colleen, you were so graciously came on last night. that'll be out. The first episode will be out this coming Sunday, and then we're going to release them weekly. So stay tuned for that, where we have a lot more conversations like this, conversations with entrepreneurs, and just, kind of just, it's going to morph as we go, but we have 7 or 8 episodes already filmed. So we're going to roll them out starting on Sunday.
Perfect. And I'll make sure when you guys do it, I will re-promote the episode and the story so everyone knows to do it.
It was a great conversation. So yeah.
Yeah.
You're our best guest so far. Don't tell anybody.
Oh my gosh, you guys are funny, but no. So I love you guys. Thanks for listening. I hope you got a lot of value for them. Make sure to follow them. First Rounds on Me. You'll see their Instagram in the show notes. And go get the dating app. I'll leave it, in the store as well, or just Google it. I think it's definitely a verified, I shouldn't say not think. I know it's a verified app for me. Like there are good things about the app. So I like it. It's a good one. And that's it. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Leave us a review, reach out, and we love you so much.